Welcome to the Progress Zone podcast, where we help you create real momentum in your mindset, business, health, and life. I'm your host, Jody Donaldson, and every week we'll explore the small, intentional steps that lead to big, lasting growth. This isn't about hype, it's about habits. So let's get started. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Progress Zone podcast. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Jerry Yu. Jerry is a physical therapist and the founder of Next Level Physio, a performance-based physical therapy practice with multiple locations across New Jersey and North Carolina. His work focuses on helping active adults and athletes not just get out of pain, but actually move better and stay healthy long-term, especially people who've been frustrated with the traditional physical therapy model. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot for having me, Jody. Really enjoying our getting to know each other over the last few months. Being a part of Alloy has been awesome. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, for folks that don't know you, if you could just kind of go back a little bit before we get into the work that you're doing today and how you help people, can you walk us through your background and kind of what led you to build Next Level Physio the way you did?
Yeah. And it's funny. I had to reflect on that. And basically, I had started off in the field like any other physical therapist, wanting to just help people. And I had an opportunity to join in a partnership with someone many years ago before I opened Next Level. And so we went that route, and our whole focus was basically on the hybrid athlete, basically the gym goer who likes to run, also likes to lift, pre-CrossFit around that time. And then we started actually working with a lot of CrossFit athletes around that time as well. And from there, after about 9 years of being in a partnership, I decided that I wanted to go on my own. So I left that partnership, opened up Next Level. And from there, it's been really focused on I would say the lifelong athlete, Jody, over 40, who is tired of chronic issues, tired of not being able to do what they want to do, and looking for a solution that's more long-term. And I think that we've had a lot of clients over the years who have been searching for that. And I always tell clients, say, hey, listen, the best time for physical therapy is when you're not injured. So we have a number of clients right now who are looking to just stay ahead of injury, because as you and I know, over the age of 30, the best thing we can do is try to stay uninjured. And whether it's through fitness, whether it's through some of the stuff that we do in physio in our practice, that is one of the main things we're trying to go after right now.
So you were doing it, so you did it about 9 years before you started Next Level. Was there anything that you were seeing early on that maybe just didn't sit right with you with the way folks were coming to visit you to make you say, I kind of want to do something different, or I can see things differently?
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. I would say that was probably, let me think about this, about 12 years into practice at that time. And so what happened was I was in a model where it was basically a mill. So seeing 3, 4, 5 patients an hour sometimes. And it was a successful practice that way, but I was definitely getting burnt out. I was not able to render care that I wanted to. So really kind of diving into what was causing this person to be in pain in the beginning, to begin with. And because of that, I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I don't think this model works for me anymore. And at the time for me, the partnership didn't work for me either, frankly. And so from there, I decided I got to try something different, and had a long talk with my wife, and we decided that let's just give it a go and see what happens. And that's how we got into opening Next Level. And for me, it became, what can I do that's different that the traditional PT isn't offering? And the first one foremost being a one-on-one experience. Second one being, can I give them the best rehab technology that we can provide that's out there so we can help to expedite outcomes? And 3, a lot of people think that, I come in with like a tendonitis or with a meniscus issue or herniated disc. And Jody, those are really just symptoms. We want to really find the root cause of why that's happening. So I always talk about how there's always 2 diagnoses of physical therapy. The first is the pain that you can point to or the symptoms that you may be coming in with. The second one, which is more important, is that root cause. And being in a model prior to opening Next Level where, again, we're seeing 3 or 4 patients an hour, it's impossible to really give your very best to figuring out what that is. And I found that going into my own practice, I was able to provide that experience for my patients where they really felt like, you really understand what's going on, or it really seems like you understand why this happened in the first place. And so that became our reputation for the last 10, 11 years now.
Yeah. No, I love that approach because I just think it's so important. I mean, and I'm sure from what you see every day, let me ask you this. Why do you think people so many people wait until something is wrong before they really pay attention to their bodies. I mean, we got one thing right here, right? One vessel. So
one vessel.
why do you think people wait until something's wrong before they even think about coming to see you?
I would say, and I've been guilty of this myself too, and maybe you have too, Jody, where I feel like, oh, it'll get better. And maybe like 7 out of 10 times it does. It's that, and I always tell clients, when it's that point where that there's something that's always kind of there and always showing up, that's when you really want to get that checked out. But I think we like to just wait till things get to the point where, oh, I really can't do this, and I got to really get this checked out. And unfortunately, Jody, sometimes it takes us that much longer to get this person to feel better. The longer you wait, the longer it takes is often what I say. But I think it's a problem across society, again, myself included, where it's like, it'll just get better. I'm too busy right now. I don't have time. Maybe it's too expensive. I don't know. But I'd rather just kind of see how I can figure out on my own, go to YouTube, do some like funky foam roll stretch or whatever it is. Right. I think that's the nature of humans.
Yeah. No, I get that. And I could see why that is. It is a shame though, because there's so much preventative stuff that can be done. And speaking of it, like people come when they have pain, right? But how often is pain really the first signal versus the last one, right? Like, is there anything you could be feeling and seeing, but just not thinking it's anything until it gets to that pain?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of things. And I'm going to say, if I'm going to backtrack for a second, I think we're really good at compensating as humans. And, let's just say, for example, we've had so many runners. We see quite a bit of runners and high-rex athletes, hybrid athletes come in. And what we found is that, when they're coming with an ankle issue or foot issue, for example, typically the problem stems up north, either the knee or the hip, or the biomechanics, how they move. And so I often tell people, it's like, listen, if you have something sort of like that's, again, like it always comes back to where, start feeling something there in that foot, there's something probably going on that's worth investigating. Right. So I always tell people, like, when you start feeling something, just be aware of what you're doing. Is it, how often are you training? Are you getting rest days? Are you getting recovery days? Are you doing some mobility work because you've had a prior injury before you do your activities? These are all things that I think are warning signs, when you start feeling things that become more and more of an issue, where something is happening that you really need to get addressed before it becomes something that requires extensive work.
Well, and that's what's so I appreciate about your approach is getting to the root cause instead of just chasing the pain, because it's just when you get to that point, it's so much longer. And I think you said it. What's the cost of waiting if people wait long term, right? Recovery's longer. It's just a downhill slope if you just wait too long.
Exactly.
And I also think too, and I don't see this in yours, but I've heard from others about folks that have gone through PT on different things. And it's like, they feel like they're like just quick fixes, but they don't really hold up because they're trying to address like, a shoulder mobility issue. And they're like, oh, just do this with the band, 30 times and twice a day. And it's like, but there's more to that, right? It's maybe how they're functioning, when they're doing the workouts on their own, or if they're not functioning at all, like, what their movement is. Do you see anything about that? Like when folks come in, do you hear stories of bad experiences at other physical therapist clinics?
Yeah. And I like to say that, and I won't mention any names in the triangle area, but these practices out there are the best thing for my practice because they do such a shoddy job of really dialing in what the patient is coming in with and what the root cause is that these people stay in pain. And it's a tragedy. And I have one quick story I want to share. I had a gal come in, 8 weeks of elbow pain, and she went to an orthopedist. And you know how it is at an orthopedist. It's sometimes very, very, very fast appointment. They don't get to really take a look. And, the woman had said she had elbow pain. So the doc wrote down on prescription to treat tennis elbow, which, I guess if you're pointing to the elbow, that could be it. Went to PT for 8 weeks, got no better. And so she's like, I'm at my wit's end. She found us online. She came in, and I kid you not, Jody, first session, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to take you, going to take you through a couple, assessment things just to make sure that nothing was missed. The first thing I had her do, Jody, just to rule out the neck as being a cause was, hey, Jane, we'll call her. Can I have you just tilt your chin down towards your chest? As soon as she did that, Jody, her elbow lit up. So she actually had a herniated disc in her neck. Yeah. So we treated her for her neck, and like literally within 3 or 4 visits, she was already like 90% better. And she was so frustrated because she wasted all that time, all the copays she paid,
Yep.
loss of being able to do what she wanted to do. And all because somebody didn't take a look upstairs to see that there's something else that might have been driving this elbow pain. But we see this a lot. I can't even tell you how many times we see this in a given week where somebody has tried PT, didn't work for them, and I just literally take them through very basic things that I would have learned 20 years ago. And when we find these things, they're like, "Oh my God, nobody checked that. Why didn't anyone check that?" I was like, "I don't have an answer for you, but this is how we just do things."
Yeah.
So, whoever's out there as PT, keep doing what you're doing because it's good for my business.
Well, and I think it's not just in physical therapy. I feel like it's in all healthcare, right? Like with insurances, because that's a whole separate conversation about, just a cattle call. Next, let's get them in here. Let's crank the heads out and do some billing. But I think to your point, taking the time to really look at the person, listen to them, right? Like, I think that's so important. And you do an excellent job of that, of just listening to what they're saying. And then you're looking at it as like a holistic approach of, okay, well, let's figure this out. So I love that.
Yeah. And all kidding aside, Jody, I didn't I'm not trying to put shade deliberately on these practices because I think as a whole, the system is broken. But it sucks that my colleagues are out there not able to do what they want to do with their patients because they don't have the time to do it.
Right. Absolutely. And 100% people that are doing it, they're doing it to help people. That's why they're in this business, right? Like,
exactly,
I totally get that. Agree 100%. They're a little handcuffed with some of the rules and regs and big pharma and insurance and whatever else.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
But let me ask you this, for folks, do you notice a mindset difference between the people who actually get better and those who don't? Take it out of the physical, but someone's coming in that might already feel dejected because 8 weeks hasn't worked for them. And they're just like, I just want to get better, versus, maybe someone who catches you early and learns a little bit more about it and gets in. How does mindset come into play for that?
That's a great question. And I'm going to say that the clients that we specialize in, which is the active person over 40, I mean, you and I, we're both, over 30, we'll say. We're over 40. But
being generous.
Yes. And you look great for your age, by the way. So actually you look great in general. But anyway, what I found is that the people who are already doing the right things, Jody, these are the people who really, really are compliant with what the plan is about. And because their mindset is about, I want to keep doing this thing for the next 30, 40 years, God willing, and I don't want anything to stop me. I don't want to feel limited from doing those things. So we attract, I would say, a very small niche of people where, as you already know, not everybody likes fitness. Not everybody likes to keep an active lifestyle. But we really are for the person who's like, I'm doing all the right things. I'm frustrated that I can't do this thing. And so because of that, they are motivated to do all the things, maybe to the nth degree, that we give them because they really want to get better. So I would say the mindset is that I don't want to be limited from doing what I love to do, and I'll do whatever it takes to get there.
Yeah, no, that's important too. And I think, and maybe this is just the way everything is on social media and things like that. But I always see, I feel people get consistency and versus intensity, and how much that comes down to, like, folks think they got to work harder or do something faster, when really, if they just did these little consistent steps over time, they're going to heal their body better. They're going to be more prepared. Do you see that a lot where folks feel like I have to be doing more intensely than I am if I just did a nice, slow, methodical approach?
Yeah. And I think you nailed something right. You nailed something right in the head there, where I think consistency trumps intensity any given day of the week. And what I have found, and this is for me personally too, in my 30s, I was that guy who was like, oh, I got to do everything, more of everything.
Yes.
And what I've come to realize is that my body doesn't take it like it used to.
No.
And I find that same mindset to be the case in our other clients who are over 40, where it's like, listen, I used to do that intense stuff. I just want to, do this thing forever. I don't care if I don't lift as heavy as I used to. I don't care if I run as fast. I just love doing these things because it's good for my mental health, my emotional health, my spiritual health, even sometimes. And so I would say I would agree with you, where a lot of our clients these days, I would say, here's the thing though. We do have a lot of weekend warriors who just go at it really hard on the weekends. And, it's their one time a week that they will go like 2 rounds of golf. They'll run 10, 15 miles, whatever. Those are the guys and gals who are more susceptible to injury than the person who's consistent and maybe has a couple spikes here of activity because they have that base and foundation of activity. So I do caution those people out there who are listening, where if you're the guy or the gal who just does all the stuff on the weekend, you're the one who I'm most concerned about to get a serious injury.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because I do think, the world that we live in is super chaotic. Everybody's working hard, 10 different directions. And the reality is, maybe that's the only time they think they have available to take care of themselves. But I think also making that disciplined approach, being consistent, is really going to serve you long-term, I think.
100%. Yeah.
Is there anything that people that you see, that you talk to, that they tend to overcomplicate that really shouldn't be complicated when it comes to the treatment of themselves?
I think people err on doing too much. And, it's funny. I think people test out injured areas too much, if that makes sense. They keep pulling at the scab. Like, oh, this is better yet, And, I always tell people, hey, listen, when you are injured or something's going on that's kind of funky, always taking a step back and making sure that you can dial things down a little bit will really help to get your body to start healing itself in a good way, unless you have something really serious going on. But in most cases, that in itself really kind of, I think, helps people just get better faster. And, you may want to try to do 15 different stretches. I think less is more when it comes to healing, especially as you get older. And so I always give people a key, like maybe 2 or 3 key exercises. Whereas back in the day, I used to give people like 20, 30 exercises. I realized people aren't going to do these things. But for the person out there, I usually say, hey, listen, just do these 2 or 3 things before you do your activity, kind of like taking a vitamin or whatever you want to call it. And that in itself will get you warmed up for what do you have to do, whatever your activity is. So less is more.
So I want to pivot for a second, because, we talked about your practice, we talked about the patients you see, but you're also a business owner, right? And at some point, this became more than just clinical work. You stepped into like business ownership. Let me ask you, what surprised you most once it became your practice?
I would say that many things surprised me. The first thing was, and this is what 2 coaches of mine, business coaches in the past, would say, is like, hey, Jerry, I was a perfectionist by nature back in the day. Oh. And what they would say is that 80% is good enough. And I was like, it is not good enough. But I learned over time that if I tried to go for perfection, Jody, nothing happened. Nothing got done.
Nothing. Yeah.
And I realized, and that's when the lesson, I was like, oh, now I understand. So I just need to get something going and have other people on my team take that to where it needs to be. And then I can move on to the next thing, rather than me doing, well, I got to take care of it till, that we actually launch this thing. That just doesn't work, especially, as you start growing your practice and as you get more team members and as you grow locations, the less that you do in operations, the better it is for the business, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing I learned that was really important was I had to really trust people and almost not necessarily abdicate, but really just trust that if I hired the right person, they're going to do the right thing. And I have to give them the leeway to make mistakes and learn so that we can both learn from it, rather than me being the one who's always driving things. And if you really, especially if you want to scale and you want to become a business owner versus a glorified employee, let's be honest, you have to learn how to trust people and be able to understand that this is how you get to grow, because your most important role as the founder or CEO of your practice or company is going to be how you can sort of set the vision right and set the culture right for future locations or for growth.
Yeah. All those are so important too, I think. And you hit several key points there, but I am curious, because you're a practicing owner, was there anywhere in your mindset that had to shift the most? Like, and besides the perfectionist and some other things, but how did that, putting that hat on as an owner, change your mindset about anything?
So I had to let go of patience too. And that was really hard for me, because I thought, well, only I can get this person better.
Right.
And how dare I think that? But what I realized is that if I could actually multiply my effect and impact by training people under me who I hired on to be able to do what I did, so that we could actually see even more patients, or I could actually elevate myself out of just treating and being operations. Because I'll tell you, and I went through many years of this where I was always in the weeds, Jody. Treating, then doing billing stuff, then figuring out the HR stuff and trying to market also. And I was basically spinning my wheels. And it wasn't until I started basically coming out of the treatment seat, and even more so now as we've scaled to 4 locations, that we were able to grow and become more successful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it sounds like you mentioned it. You had some business coaching and some support, some mentors or whatever. Do you see, because you've talked with with them and you also talk to other business owners, do you see any parallels between how people treat their bodies and how they treat their businesses? Like, the ones that are better shape and take care of themselves, do they have a better, leaner business? Or is there any parallels to that?
That's interesting. I've never been asked that. I would say in my industry, that is true.
Okay.
I have found that the guys and gals out there who own businesses who are also living the right lifestyle tend to do better because, number one, they have more energy. Their physical foundation is set, which means I think that their mental, emotional health, for the most part, is probably pretty much under control, because you really have to have all your faculties to be performing at your best. And if you're just kind of like, I guess you could be successful and not, be in shape and not have your health be a part of that. But I find that the people that I know in my circle, everyone's super fit, everyone's super very conscientious about their health and really prioritize that. And I think that goes a long way for building the right habits in both your fitness and also in your business as well. And also, you want to be the example for what you're trying to preach. If I were like, 300 pounds and just, slothy and, was trying to preach to you, Jody, hey, you got to do some, more exercises. That would really, it's like the fat cardiologist, right? Telling you about, hey, you got to watch your health, right? So I think for me,
as they're eating just a Big Mac.
Yeah, exactly. So I think in our case, we really preach like how we're really about how health and wellness is so important. It's a big foundation for how our patients can get better and get better faster. So we want to also be the example for our clients too.
There might be a misconception out there that folks think they only can see a physical therapist if they're hurting, but you do like screening and proactive stuff. Is that something that do you think people are missing, that they don't realize they could actually do this without having a referral from a primary care physician or something else, or an orthopedic or whatever?
Thankfully, in most states, there is something called direct access where you don't have to see a physician to see a physical therapist. Okay. And like I said before, like we love doing screenings because we just love, like for us, it's, I think we're made, we were put on earth to serve others. And so one of the ways that we serve the community at large and get out there and help people see that there's a solution for them is to do these assessments where it's like, listen, I just want to show you what you could be working on that will greatly enhance how you do your workouts, how you do your running, how you do your CrossFit, how you golf. And so I think by putting those kind of assessments in place for the public where we don't charge for those things. These are just meant to help people see that there's a roadmap for them if they want to get more optimized without, even if they're not injured, optimizing their health and fitness so that they can continue doing those things they love to do.
There might be someone listening who just is kind of overwhelmed with options or what they see on the internet or whatnot. For someone listening, it's to start being more proactive, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Like you said, you're a recovering perfectionist. I am as well. We're trying to figure that out. But where could they realistically begin? Is it that assessment? Is it just coming in, sitting down, saying, this is what I'd like to do, this way I function during the week, whatever their lifestyle is that the best way to just really get started? Or is there another approach that people should be doing?
I think the best way to get started is, first off, realizing what it is that you want to fix. And in our case, it's people who just want to optimize their physical health in general, but also if they have something that's been bothering them, they haven't really had checked out, to see what it really is about. But, our first session, and I think it actually mirrors what you guys do at Alloy, it's really about just finding out more about that person. What is it, what it is that is making them tick, seeing what their daily habits are like, what their macros are like, what their stress levels are, what their sleep is like, what kinds of things they're doing for any exercise, if they are doing anything, and any hangups or any hiccups they've had in life that have maybe not allowed them to continue on this journey of health and fitness. And from there, we have a conversation just about, well, here's what you could do. And then based on that, they're very simple solutions. I always believe in, again, less is more. Hey, maybe instead of going to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning and getting up at 6 for work, let's just try dialing that back a little bit. Let's turn off the digitals well in advance. Let's have more conversation with people that your loved ones. Basically, just getting them to the better habits of being out, taking care of themselves. Let's, instead of having 5 candy bars, okay, let's just try to pare that down first. Let's start getting the habits before we start putting something new into their lives.
Yeah. No, I think that's so important too, because I do think people, and I hear this from so many folks, is just that they're just overwhelmed with information. So they're just frozen. It's like, paralysis by analysis. They're just like, I don't know what to do. So I'm going to keep eating and not moving and just, whatever. But for someone who's like sedentary, maybe not active at all, is there one habit that actually moves the needle for them just to get a baseline?
Wow, that's a good question.
And there might be more than one. It's just I'm
Yeah,
trying to think of something for folks that are just in that mindset of I'm overwhelmed. I don't know where to begin. I don't
yeah.
walk. I don't run. I don't play pickleball. I don't do anything.
Right. Yeah.
What could they do? One thing that just change to get some momentum going.
I think depending on the person, what occupation they're in, the first thing I would say is just getting up early and getting your rhythm to be in that sort of new place. And from there, I mean, honestly, it could be something like, hey, let's just go for 200 steps, even that's inside your house.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a desk worker, something like that. Getting basic movement in place, I think, is key. I'm not a big fan of beginners wearing wearables right off the bat, just because I think that can cause more chaos and more stress.
More
But
overload.
really just it's like 5-10 minutes. I would say, I've had patients in the past where they just wanted to start moving. I say, listen, why don't you just go for a 10-minute walk? Make that one thing that you do this week, every day, 10 minutes. Very small wins here. And then from there, we'll start building slowly, because the last thing you want to do is put you in a position where all of a sudden you got all this, like, oh, I got to do this, this, and this. And then you just start dropping the ball and you say, oh, I tried it, and you failed again. And so I found over the years that, again, simplicity, just the simple things, starting one habit a week, if you will, for an extended amount of time, I think works much, much better than throwing 3 or 4 or 5 different things at that person.
Yeah, for sure. I think that does create more mental overload and decision fatigue of not knowing where to go.
Fatigue, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, no, I love that. And, so that's something somebody could be doing to get started. Is there anything that people that you would say need to stop ignoring on the opposite side? Like what their body's telling them?
I would say that when you start feeling, when you're doing your workouts that you normally would do, and you start noticing a decrease in your performance, whether that's being able to lift less weight or not being able to run as fast, that might be I would say maybe yellow flashing light saying that, hey, let's just do a recap. Let's just kind of do a recess here. Have I been eating enough? Have I been drinking enough? Have I been recovering enough? And I think those are really key indicators to determine whether or not you're going towards that unfortunate phase of overtraining, where then you can get sick and other kinds of things can happen as a result. But I think when you start seeing a decrease in your regular performance as a whole, especially if you're already doing the right things, I would say it's time to dial it back or have that checked out.
Are you seeing in your practice a lot more of one particular injury over another? I've articles and stories about how pickleball has been a great resource for physical therapists and orthopedics. Are you seeing meniscus tears, ACLs, labrum tears? Like, where do you see a pattern of the same type of injuries more than you used to, or consistently?
I would say it depends on the activity the person does. So we see a ton of runners, and I'm going to say 2025, and it's funny, every year, Jody, it changes. It's really funny, but 2025 was a year of high hamstring strains and plantar fasciitis. Like every other person and their mother had this coming in, all different walks of life coming in. So for whatever reason, they decided 2025 was the year. And then low back pain is always a constant. You probably know this, but 80% of Americans have low back pain, and 90% of those 80% have a recurrence. So that is like sort of our staple baseline, if you will. And then on top of that, we have these other extremity issue injuries. If you're looking at triathletes, we're looking at shoulder and neck injuries being very prime as far as that goes, from swimming and from biking. High rocks, a lot of hip knee issues are happening, we're seeing. The person who's doing that type of workout often ends up with these issues. And so I think it really depends on the sport that we're looking at.
I think, you see the different articles and you see just athletes that are getting more and more tears. And it's just like, is it the conditions? I mean, these are elite athletes that are having more and more injuries, it seems, more frequently. And so it's just, it's interesting to know. And that's why I was curious, what you see in your practice.
Yeah.
Is there anything that sticks out to you when you're talking to folks that's just overrated fitness advice that they just need to stop listening to?
Well, actually, one thing that's come to mind recently is, and I used to be a big proponent of this as well until the research said otherwise, but we used to think you got to lift super heavy to get the benefits of lifting. And that is true and whatnot. But if you're just starting out, that's not the direction you want to be going in. And I would even say for for example, in their later years where they're either postmenopause or in their menopause, where bone health is an issue, you can actually end up getting more injuries. But besides that, we found that from recent articles and research that you can lift lighter weights and increase the intensity by increasing number of sets and repetitions and still have a positive effect on bone health. Yeah. So while I still am a proponent of lifting heavy when you can, you don't have to do that to get the same benefit on your general health and your bone health in particular.
Well, the old school thought of just got to lift heavy and hard. And, you know, it's like, I mean, the thing too, I think people don't realize, they think you lose so much of your muscle mass over 30 and it just each year it gets less, but you can still gain muscle mass over time. And I think that people don't realize that. Definitely. And it is education piece. I do think we have a lot of, high profile folks like Dr. Peter T and others that are talking about longevity and functional fitness and strength training. So important to just be moving and having a quality of life in your last decade. So I think that's helpful, but I still think there's so many people that just don't realize that they need to do this because ultimately you're losing it every year if you don't do anything just by aging.
100%.
So.
Yeah. And actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, Jody, because a lot of the endurance athletes that we work with, they still think of strength training as sort of like the thing they do when they have time.
Right.
But if you look at the research, it's very clear. If you want to increase your running economy and get better at it, you got to have adding strength training really does make a difference in your recovery and your performance. Yeah. But with long distance training, you're also going to lose muscle mass more so than somebody who's lifting every day, lifting more frequently. So I always tell runner, you got, no matter what you do, if you take any advice from me, it's that you got to lift more frequently as part of your training, and look at strength training as part of your training for running, not as this other thing when you have time.
I think that's so important for people to hear, because I think a lot of the runners that we come across and I talk to, it's like, I just got to do the cardio. I got to get the miles in. And it's like, well, you're going to have plantar fasciitis. You're going to have hip issues, your knee issues if you're not doing that strength training. And it is so important. Huge. I also think too, people underestimate how much protein they need, right? Protein is such a big component of their diet and a macro that is so important that, I think if somebody has not been a person that works out or has not been into the fitness space or read up, understands macros or anything like that, just a simple thing of more water and getting more protein in your diet is probably going to help maybe slow some of that degeneration of muscle mass right over time. I mean, would you agree, or do you have different thoughts on that?
100% agree. And also I bring, that's one of the first questions we ask is like, hey, have you tracked your protein? And Jody, you probably face this yourself, where people are often surprised by how little protein they consume. They'll give me this, I had an egg here, I had yogurt, whatever. Yeah. We add the math up. It's like, you had 20 grams today. It's like, what? That's it? It's like, yeah, man, that's not going to be enough. And so, and it's part of the rehab, and also as part of the rehab too, anyone who's coming from after a surgery or they had some sort of injury, we always say you got to beef up your protein more. Your body needs the right kinds of tools to be able to fix what's going on and repair itself. If you're under eating because you're afraid of gaining weight during that process, you can always lose the weight, but you really want to increase your calories, and especially with protein, to be able to have your body heal at its best. Yeah.
Have it work in your favor in the healing process, right? Like, don't deprive it when you really need it the most to do what it's supposed to do. Our bodies are pretty amazing and do incredible work on its own. So let's make it easier on it and not make it harder, right? Exactly, Jody. Well, let me ask you this. You're super fit. You work out a lot. You look great. What do you do to stay healthy and fit? Just, you're busy. You're a business owner. You're a doctor. What do you do to keep you motivated and active? Yeah, I think, what's interesting about me, I'm like my patients that I work with. So I just want to keep running and lifting, Jody, till the cows come home, another 30, 40, 50 years, hopefully. Right. Yeah. And so that's what really gets me out of bed. Like, my days when I don't work out are very different, although I do take at least 1 or 2 rest days a week to recover. But during the week, I find that if I didn't do my workouts, I'm not as good at handling the stress that comes at me, bombards me all day long, whether it be stresses from different offices, because we have any number of issues that happen in a given day, as as a business owner. But I'm better able to tackle them when I'm in a better state physically. And that's why I love to work out and do the things there. And the other thing is for me, just always making sure that I eat enough protein and carbs. I've realized much later in life how much that's really helpful for not only lifting, but also for running. Yep.
I used to think, oh, I'll just like kind of like go into like a ketogenic state or whatever. And while that can be helpful for a lot of people, for me, I found that I have to have the carbs. So that's what helps me to recover and to perform at the highest level that I can. Sleep for me has become so much more important since I was 40. And I realized that I wasn't really getting quality sleep. And so taking the measures of making sure I have a nighttime routine, getting off of my digital, things or activities before I go to bed, sleeping early, getting up early, all these things are really important for me to maintain the lifestyle I want to live. But, for me, it's like, I also want to show up for the people that I want to work with. And I don't want to be the kind of guy where it's like, oh, I used to work out, but ... I want to show up and make sure that people see the example that I'm living so that they can be inspired to also realize that it's not too late, number one. If I can do it in my 50s, you can do it in your 50s, that kind of thing. But also number two, knowing that, hey, I'm going to take this guy's advice because he's obviously living it out and doing the right things. He obviously knows something about what's going on.
Well, you lead by example, right? And then
yes.
I do think, I'm glad to hear, you work out, you do the things that you need to do for self-care, because I do think that's something that people don't think about a lot, or it's too, frou-frou of, going to the spa treatment, things like that. But no, rest, sleep, water, protein, like there's so many things.
Imagine that.
Meditate, gratitude journal, things you could do to just get you in the good space so that you show up better for your workers, for your friends, for your family, for your everybody. Right. And I think that's what we're about here. So, I mean, I got to tell you, I so appreciate your approach on things. I think
thank you.
that, I appreciate you taking the time to come on and share your background and your perspective. And the work you're doing, I think, is amazing. Please keep it up.
Thank you.
And I do think this conversation, it's going to give people a lot to think about when it comes to their health and how they can take care of themselves long-term and be proactive, right?
Yes, exactly.
So,
and Jody, and I thank you, for you. And I love the community that you built, you and Tevin at Alloy and Carrie. It's been a great community. I love the coaches. I've met several of them already. And, the commitment that you have to making sure that your people, your community is taken care of, and that you can do all that you can in order to help them to get on their health journey and really take it by storm and take it by the horns, I think is really important. So kudos to you as well.
Well, thank you. Thank you, my friend. I definitely, I just, to be a resource for people and to help them get a little bit better every single day, right? That's what it's all about.
Yes,
I think I say this all the time, but I think it's so important that if our future self, you think about in your future self, if we're not doing anything, our future self is going to be disappointed that we wasted so many years, right? And it's not too late. It's not too late to start doing something so that we can be better later and just get a little bit better each day. So, well, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, Jody. I'm looking forward to developing a friendship over time.
Yep. And for everyone watching or listening, just remember, progress isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, taking action, and getting just a little bit better every single day. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time inside the Progress Zone. Thanks for joining me in the Progress Zone. If today's episode gave you a spark, share it with a friend, subscribe, or leave a quick review. And remember, progress isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up. I'm Jody Donaldson, and I'll catch you next time inside the Progress Zone.